The Unplayable Podcast is proudly presented by Qantas, the official podcast partner and the official airline partner of Cricket Australia. Once again this season, Qantas is proud to be flying Australia's cricketers as they take on the world. Hello champions, Australia are 2-0 up in the Ashes series after an 8-wicket victory at the Gabba. It was all happening here on day 4, including some Steve Smith verbals that got everybody up and about. Josh Schonafinger here, joined by champion Louis Cameron. How are you, mate?
I think that the only thing better than being here at the ground today to watch, especially that last little stanza of play, would have been watching it on TV, and just the safety of hearing Ricky Ponting champing Jofra Archer just after Steve Smith also champed Jofra Archer. Matthew Hayden apparently had a great call of it too. It just gets the old boys flowing. It just gets the juices flowing, does it for everyone. And it ended up being just a classic Aussie moment in the end, didn't it? Yeah, it was. And I'm sure it'll go down in Ashes folklore, as these things tend to do. It was Smith versus Archer. Australia only needed 65 to win, and Smith was called in after Travis Head and Marnus Labuschagne went out, and Jofra Archer came on after the dinner break with the headband on. He was bowling fast, 150 clicks, but Smith was up for the challenge. He's never been dismissed by Jofra Archer, which he likes to remind everybody about. And when Archer gave him a little bit of lip, he just told him, I've got the quote here, bowl fast when there's nothing going on, champion. Well, I mean, and to Jofra's credit, he did come in and give it his absolute all. I think some of the criticism of Jofra early in the game is a little bit unwarranted. Yes, I mean, Smith is right. He was charging in, and it probably would have been nice at times for maybe England to get that version of Jofra, in that Australian first innings.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's true. But like people calling him, the pillow thing, he came in bringing a pillow. When he turned up to the ground the other day, the obvious one is that, England must be soft if they're bringing in a pillow. Well, I don't think that was fair. I think there were times where he bowled within himself when he could have really cranked it up, and I think there were times where Stokes got a little bit upset with how he fielded, particularly. Maybe not so much his bowling, but it was an electric finish to the game, and Smith's unbeaten record against Archer lives on. Jake Weatherald was the other one who was absolutely loving it. You could tell he was kind of giving it some big ones from after he got down the non-strikers end. And, I reckon Archer might have just reminded him that I might be able to blow your front pad off again, buddy. Jake managed to survive it.
So Smith finished with 23 not out off only 9 balls, 2 4s, 2 6s. Weatherald was at the other end on 17 not out off 23. It was probably as animated as we've seen Smith, especially with the bat. Firstly, he was animated in the field when he took that spectacular one-handed catch at slip. We'll come back to that. But then with the bat, he was just he looked like a man possessed almost. He was really up and about. He was there for the contest, and he said afterwards he was trying to finish the game quick smart because he knew there was a storm coming about to hit Brisbane. But what did you make of the extra animation that we saw from Smith tonight?
Yeah, it got his beans going. Like, he kind of has a reputation as a slightly different unit who, just kind of goes within himself. But when you fire him up, like, you see a different side of him, and like his eyes just got going, and he was like, I'm in this contest and I'm finishing this as quick as possible. I love that. I love that from him. He's had a blinder of a test. The catch he took earlier in the day is absolutely one of his best in terms of just match turning moments. He's done a very good job for the 2 tests he's been in charge of. That might be the last time we see him captain this series. Yeah,
it may well be. We saw Pat Cummins actually on the field quite a bit today with the orange bib on, carrying and relaying drinks and messages to his teammates out there. So that was a bit of a strange one to see the Australian captain running the drinks and the messages. But yeah, I agree. Pat Cummins is firming for a return in Adelaide, so we might see Steve just settle back into that vice captaincy role. If we want to circle back to the start of the day, Ben Stokes just said at the press conference that he wanted to show some fight, and he did that along with Will Jacks. They went through that first session completely undefeated, you'd say. First wicketless session of the series so far. Went to England, funnily enough, but they didn't really score at a rate that allowed them to get enough runs where Australia would have been troubled. It was Steve Smith's catch off Michael Neser, really from nothing, that changed the game and got Australia back into the box seat.
That's right. It's amazing what's going on around us. Like all the rubbish up in the stands at the Gabba, and all the rubbish that's been left behind by the fans over the last few days. Just kind of blowing around. There's a can going down.
It feels like that storm's about to hit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Maybe the winds have changed. England will be hoping blowing through before their trip to Neser and then on to Adelaide. But what were we talking about? Ben Stokes. At the start of the day.
Stokes. Let's get to Stokes.
Yeah. Well, I think there's an interesting story there about. I thought some conservative captaincy across this game, like the way they batted today. Yes, they absolutely showed some fight. Was it the right time to be show? Like, obviously, it was the right time to show some fight. The way they batted kept England in the game, but the way Stokes has talked about this Bazball era and the way he wants to lead the team, it's always been about taking the positive option. And I just felt like they hung on a bit too grimly to that desire to block and push things out, especially after they kind of got through that first session, and Australia did a great job of just keeping the scoreboard under control. But to get back into the game today, they probably need to take a risk to do that. Yeah. So I understand. Yep, you see off Stark, you see off Boland in particular. At some point, you really got to take a risk, and it might have even been those last 2 overs Australia bowled before the tea break. From Marnus and Travis Head, instead of just kind of blocking them back, why don't you try and get 20 off each of those 2 overs? Yeah. All of a sudden, that could really change things, get the momentum going back in your favour. I even think back to day one when they were 9 for maybe around 250, 260. They were behind the game for sure, and Root and Archer got them back in it with a 70-run last wicket partnership. Could they have declared in that moment? Yeah. There were 40 minutes left to go in the day. That's maybe 6, 7, 8 overs if they get their skates on. They could have got 2 or 3 wickets, and then all of a sudden it's not Head and Weatherald you're bowling to the next morning. It's Australia's middle order. Yeah. Yes, you're going to have less runs, but that was a moment. We spoke a little bit about the Edgbaston test in 2023, the first time Australia came up against Bazball. Stokes declared with Joe Root on 118 not out. Yes, England lost that game, but that aggressive style, that always taking the positive option and doing things a little bit different, that's what he would have done 2 years ago, and I'm kind of waiting for that kind of thing to happen now. Yeah. And even the deep fields, except for Stark yesterday, I think they were pretty defensive. It's been an interesting version of Stokes that we've seen in this series.
It has. England even had that game against New Zealand in Mount Maunganui last year, where they batted first in a pink ball test, made 350 off 60 overs and declared on the first day. So they've done it before. Yeah. They just didn't seem like it was even a consideration here in this match, which was a surprise considering the big talk that they've had about this aggressive play. Yeah,
it has been, and there has also been a regression a little bit and an acknowledgement, I think, from them that it I can't remember if it was a term the English press used or but the sentiment was that we're going to see Bazball with brains, and I guess we've seen that. Like there is a real strategy behind it. There is a real just some more thought gone into how they do it rather than always just attacking. But that's a hard one for this top order. As top 7 have been given a licence over the last few years, and I think Stokes and McCullum are wary of withdrawing that licence, particularly around how they drive on the up and things like that. They don't want to kind of confuse them, but it does kind of look a bit confused the way England are playing at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And so England got through that first session without losing a wicket, and they were looking pretty solid in the second session as well. As we touched on, it was Michael Neser, the third of his 5 wickets that got the breakthrough. It was Will Jacks caught by Steve Smith in his left hand. Alex Carey was up to the stumps. Reaction time next to nothing. Scooped it up just above the turf. Absolute specky, and then he took off in celebration as if he was half his age. Ended up at the non-striker's end of the pitch. He was that delighted. No one could catch him, and he maybe just ran out of puff in the end, but it was a fantastic catch and maybe one of his best. And he's caught a lot in Test cricket, Lou. Absolutely one of his best. The one I thought of immediately was the indoor catch that he took to win a really tight test in India. One of the few times Australia have won a test in India. That was at leg slip off Nathan Lyon when he kind of went left the wrong way and then ended up catching in his right. Again, he actually kind of spoke about later giving Alex Carey a real rap for his wicket-keeping, saying that he actually felt like he could stand wider at first slip than what he normally would, because Carey was keeping so beautifully and covering so much ground up to the stump. So that nearly kind of cost him in the end, because he really had to go a long way
to his left. And I think the reason he was so happy was they wanted to get that one wicket before the second new ball, and really that's they knew that if they were bowling with that second new ball to Stokes and Jacks, it would have been a lot harder to kind of get through the tail, but they got that breakthrough and they ended up. Did they even take the second new ball?
No, they didn't get there in the end.
75 overs. So, Australia have just out-bowled, out-batted, and outfielded these guys. And Ben Stokes, I think, has all but admitted that. You think about the catches. We were kind of trying to figure it out before. Australia dropped one catch, I think, in this game, and you wouldn't even call it a chance. The one that got smashed at Travis Head at short leg. England dropped 5 catches in the second half of Australia's first innings. Yeah. It wasn't just 5 catches in a match. It was 5 catches in a reasonably short period of time. I think it was 4 in that final session on day 2. So combined with, how Neser and Boland bowled through the daytime, but then in the daytime as well, they just zeroed in on that crack. There was one snaking right down the Gabba wicket, and it's ironic. Australia's ball speed, if you compared the speeds between the two pace groups, Australia's probably down, especially in this game where Boland and Neser, it's still good stuff around mid 130s, but or low to mid 130s, and a pace that Carey's able to keep up to the stumps to. But that proved the most challenging in the daytime. Like guys who are really, really accurate, who can zero in on the stumps, who can zero in on some tough parts of the pitch. That ended up being England's the hardest thing for England to play.
Definitely. Brendan Doggett deserves a bit of credit as well. He had to bowl a lot of donkey overs, a lot of bumper stuff today again, while the other guys got to pitch it up and aim for that crack. So well done to Brendan Doggett for playing the team role there. But it was another great piece of fielding from Alex Carey that got Ben Stokes shortly after he got to his 50, and only 2 overs after Will Jacks was dismissed. So the wheels were sort of falling off there. Another well-deserved wicket for Neser, but Carey, he's had a great game behind the stumps, and this really capped it off. Up again, keeping up to the stumps to a fast bowler like Michael Neser, fairly significant deflection, and just caught it somehow.
Yeah, it's what he's done in this test has been incredible. Steve Smith got right around him in his press conference that we were just at. I had a quick chat with Alex Carey after the game and asked him just about his keeping, what goes into being able to do what you just did. He says he doesn't actually practice keeping up to the stumps to fast bowlers because it's too dangerous, more or less. And he spent a lot of, at least half the overs to Boland and Neser keeping up to them.
So it's just instinct.
He says it's just instinct. He obviously practices a lot up to the stumps for Nathan Lyon. But like you think about if you got someone wanging one or throwing him at 130 kilometres an hour, that's your every chance of breaking a finger. Your every chance of doing that in a game. So I can understand why he wouldn't practice it. He's got his keeping into an amazing position. Like I reckon when he first came into the Australian team, it was probably keeping up to the stumps that might have been the knock on him. Like he was an excellent gloveman in South Australia during that era when the Chad Sayers, Dan Worrell, Joe Mennie took a lot of great catches back to the stumps, but there wasn't a whole lot of spin bowled. Well, Nathan Lyon absolutely loves bowling with him there now, and now so do Boland and Michael Neser. Who would have thought that 2 fast bowlers? Neser said last night that it took him a bit of convincing, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a hit to the ego when you got to keep it up to the stumps to you, but they've embraced it.
And it's a completely different challenge for Carey as well, because he's so used to playing tests with Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins, and those guys are probably just a bit too quick to be coming up to the stumps to on a regular occasion. Yeah. So now he's got a few guys who he does come up to, and he, as you said, he did it a lot in this test and did it really well. So another big tick for Alex Carey there.
Yeah, and fantastic kind of segue into what Australia are going to do for Adelaide, right? Like Neser's just taken his first 5-wicket haul, absolutely bowled the house in, got better as the game went on, I thought. His new ball spells in both innings so-so. Ironically, the knock on him has normally been those spells, like with the older ball, like is he quick enough to maybe challenge the best test batters in the world? Well, that was his strength in this game. And I would have thought if he gets another game in Adelaide or later in the series, I would expect his new ball bowling to be much, much better. That's a scary prospect for England potentially. But how do you fit him in the team if Pat Cummins is fit for the next test? Nathan Lyon has all but guaranteed to be playing by the head selector in George Bailey. So 2 bowlers probably have to go out. dog it, I guess, is the other one. Do they look at resting Boland? Do they look at resting Stark? These are all the discussions selectors are going to be having over the next few days.
Yeah, and I'm sure the selectors will be delighted with the decision to play Neser here over line. He's vindicated that decision with being the most economical Aussie bowler in the first innings and then taking, as you said, that maiden 5-wicket haul in the second.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I reckon one of the things Bailey loves to say is that there's no right selection in the sense that like if they lost the test, like that doesn't make the selection wrong necessarily, and if they win the test, that doesn't make them genius selectors either.
Sure.
And there are different ways of winning games. So could Nathan Lyon have done a similar holding job that Boland and Neser did in this match? We'll never know the answer.
It gives him an out too, I suppose. If he that way, he can always look like he's made the right call.
That's right. Yeah. I think. You can look at it that way. I think what this panel's been pretty good at is then also not taking too much credit for when they do make the right call. In this instance, they look like geniuses, right? Because Neser's come through and taken 5 from it and bowled the house down. But I know, speaking to them in the past, they, for instance, didn't want to take too much credit for the Boland selection initially at the MCG back in the last Ashes, because their logic was they were picking a guy to bowl on a really, really flat MCG wicket who they knew could bowl 40, 50 overs in a test and do this donkey work. Well, he's almost become the complete opposite bowler. He's become just the guy you want on a wicket that's nibbling around a bit. So I think that's been pointed out to me in the past that they got the selection right, I suppose, but it wasn't for the reasons that they picked him for. So
we've still got another 10 days until the third test begins in Adelaide. It's another significant break between these test matches. The English team have said they're going up to Neser and relax and decompress and just take a bit of a mental break because they've been here for a month and, the pressure has been extreme, so I can understand why they want to do that. A lot of people will say they should be training and all those sorts of things. They've opted to take some personal time. The Aussies, they'll just have some time at home as well, I suppose, before they come into camp in Adelaide. But it does beg the question, where do England go from here? Do they make wholesale changes to their 11? Their England Lions have been struggling against Australia A just down the road at AB Field here as well in a match that's going on at the same time. So there are lots of question marks about England and what happens now.
From a batting point of view, the selection, I'm not sure. Ollie Pope seems to be the one the English media is kind of closing in on. He has been a guy who's kind of just had steady performances along the journey. Crawley's been another one, but he was probably their leading run scorer in this test. So you'd think he's pretty secure. But what are the options? So they played their spare all-rounder, if you like, in Will Jackson this test. The other batting option in the squad is Jacob Bethel. He's never made a first-class 100. Does anyone really think he's going to go much better at number 3 than Ollie Pope? I think they've got to stick with the top 7 that they've got. From a bowling point of view, it probably comes down more to fitness. Jofra, they need to find a way of getting what they got out of him tonight when he was fired up. That was brilliant stuff. That was 150 stuff. Maybe they need to look at how long they're bowling him for. Maybe someone needs to light a real rocket under him every time he bowls and goes, we're not bowling you for more than 3 or 4 overs, but we want you to get up them and really bowl your best stuff every time, and we're not going to over bowl you. And then you can rely on an Atkinson who's also showed, he got 2 wickets tonight. I think he's got real potential. Sorry, he's not got potential as well. He's an excellent test bowler, and he should be doing better on these wickets that are offering a little bit. Bryden Cass, struggled with the ball in this test, and maybe you're looking at a Josh Tongue or someone like that going forward. In terms of I think everyone's going to read a lot about McCullum's quotes about overtraining. He thinks, if anything, England overtrained leading into this test. Ben Stokes has basically said training for the wrong reasons is a waste of time, and it could be detrimental to your game. I agree with it. Them going to the nets every single day between now and the Adelaide test, and flogging themselves, and I just don't think that's going to make them much better players than Australia. They probably are what they are, and you're just kind of adjusting to the conditions and making yourself sharp between tests. So I completely agree that they need to decompress mentally. I think for them it's a tactical discussion. We heard Marcus Trescothick at the press conference the other day say that they hadn't really had conversations about driving on the arc. That kind of baffles me. And I don't know if That was kind of just what he said, and he was just kind of deflected in the moment. But they need to be really thinking about their tactics on this tour. Like when are the moments to press? When are the moments to attack? These guys have all the shots. When is the right time to deploy them? And then the flip side with the bowling, like when is the best? What are our best options with the ball? These bowlers haven't played a lot. Sorry, I'm ranting here, Josh, but these bowlers haven't played a lot with each other. Like Jofra hasn't played much over the last few years. Bryden Cast is only 10, 11, 12 tests into his test career. Atkinson has a bit of experience, but again has been injured for quite a bit over the last 12 months. Stokes is probably still feeling out exactly how all these guys work in together. And the guy who's the most experienced, that he knows what kind of role he can play, Mark Wood, is didn't play this test, might not play the next one, and there's a real question mark over him. So they're the discussions they need to be having. They need to be rock solid on what they're going to do. They need to really look at what do Australia do to win test matches in Adelaide. So I feel like here they didn't quite get the tactics right. It can be foreign. Yes, you don't have the experience, and Australia have lots of experience playing in these conditions. They need to look at how Australia have won red ball tests in Adelaide and dig into the numbers and come there with a real plan to knock over Australia.
Lots of very important questions that need to be answered over the next 10 days. Let's hope the internet access in Neser is nice and strong so they can get into that match vision and check it all out. Blue, Australia 2-0. We'll catch you in Adelaide.
Look forward to it.